Alrighty, welcome to the end of Chapter 7, Particle Systems. Let's go ahead and take a look at a really cool thing that we can do with particle systems. Now, this is actually something I've been personally experimenting with for a while now, and that is wind tunnel simulations. And as you all know, that's when we have these lines of fog going over a car or some kind of aircraft to show how air resistance interacts with our vehicle or our object, whatever it might be. Well, let's start out with an object. How about we just add a sphere to keep things simple, and then we need something to emit particles to go around our sphere. The simplest thing I can think of is a plane. So I will go ahead and add a plane. Now I'm going to go ahead and move this plane off to the left, and I'm going to press RX90 to rotate it. And now what I want to happen is I want particles to be emitted from this, but I want them to travel towards our sphere. Now let's go ahead and set that up. I'm going to move this out a little bit further. I'm also going to turn on random colors so you guys can really see what's going on here. I'm going to go to my particle emitter tab. I'm going to click plus, and now we have an emission of particles, but they're going the wrong way. So how do we get them to go the way that we want? Well, let's go to our gravity settings. Now, we know that we want these to travel in the y direction. So I'm going to turn our z power to 0. Now, our y direction, I'm going to turn that to 10. Now, let's go ahead and see what we get. Perfect. Now they're traveling towards our cube. We're getting one step closer. Now, the only thing is they're not interacting with our cube, and that's our sphere. And that is because our sphere does not have a collision. Let's go ahead and click on our sphere. Let's go to our physics properties, and let's simply add a collision. Now, if we go all the way back, these particles should bounce off of our sphere. Let's see. And indeed, they do. Now, they bounce off in a kind of unpredictable way. How can we make this more predictable? Well, there's a couple of different things we can do. First of all, if I click on my sphere, on my plane, and I tab into edit mode, I can first of all scale this down because I want these particles to be a little bit smaller. So I'm going to scale this down, and I'm actually going to hit Shift D and Z to lock this to the Z axis, and I'm going to give myself a couple of those. So I'm going to click Shift R to repeat the action, and I think I want 4 of them, and I'm going to scale them down just a little bit more. Now I'm out of edit mode at this point. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lower those just a little bit. That looks good. Now remember, in our particle emitter system, we can actually decide how we want these emitted. So if we go to our little source tab right here, right now everything's being emitted from the faces. And I just want to show you this difference again to remind you. If I click on vertices and now we press play, notice how they're only being emitted from the vertices. It might be hard to see because of the particle size. So let's go ahead to our viewport display and render. And instead of halo, maybe we'll choose something different. How about we choose point or maybe cross? There we go. Cross will be easier to see. Now for the size, I can reduce the size as well. And if you watch now they're only being emitted from the corners. Now in our case, I actually want them to be emitted from the faces. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. This is what it looks like if they're emitted from the faces. Everything looks good so far. Now remember, we can make this any object we want. In my opinion, I think it looks cool that they're crosses, and we can do something really extraordinary with these as well. Notice how we have cross right here and it says color material. Well, we can make it any material we want, or we can actually choose velocity. Now velocity is interesting to me because velocity is actually going to color these based on how fast they're going. So let's take a look now. As you can see, we're not really getting a different effect, and that's because of this fade distance. You can see if I slide this out, you can kind of see how the velocity changes based on the distance it is from an object. So now if I play this back, we should have a slightly better result. That's what I'm talking about. So now you can see how the velocity starts out, and then it kind of slows down a little bit. And this is a really interesting effect. Now to really sell this effect, and I'm going to go ahead and save this, I'm going to call this particle, how about aerodynamics? Let's see if I spelled that one right. Go ahead and click on save. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to raise the particle count. So again, make sure you're clicked onto your particle emitter. Now, right now we're generating 1,000. Let's generate, and yes, I'm serious about this, 10,000. Now we're going to get a lot of particles now. Let's see what this looks like, and let's hope Blender doesn't crash. And it doesn't. And it looks really cool. And look at that interaction that we get. Now, this is where we can start to fine-tune things. Here's one thing I'm going to say. I will go ahead and make these a little bit bigger because I want to make sure that they are slightly bigger than the sphere so they actually go around the sphere. We want some of these particles to travel right past the sphere so we can really see where they're interacting. And already, this is really cool. And I honestly could experiment with this all day. There's a couple of settings we're going to want to change. A couple of those involve dampening and the actual collision object themselves. So I'm going to start off with the collision object. Now, as you remember, there's a thickness outer. We don't need to change that. Everything looks like it's colliding normally. Now, here's this dampening factor and friction. Those change a lot. Let me just show you what it would look like if I put dampening up a lot. Let's go ahead and take a look. Notice how much more they stick to the surface. I'm going to go ahead and raise this a lot. Notice how much they stick to the surface now and they kind of slide off in a more organic way. This is going to show us a more accurate representation of how fluid or air would flow around our object. This is looking really cool already. Let's go ahead and give that a quick save, and let's go back to our particle emitter settings. Now there's a lot of different things that we can change here. Under our physics tab, this is probably one of the most important things. You have our mass, our Brownian, drag, and damp. All of these do very similar things. One of the things I like to play with is the mass. Right now, we're at 1 kilogram per particle. Let's see what happens if we bring this up to 10. Very different effect. You may not be able to tell, but the particles aren't being affected as much. Another thing we can mess with is the drag, which is, again, basically the air resistance. Now, I put that about halfway, so let's see the result we get. They're going quite slower. Now, if we bring this up all the way, let's see the result we get. Again, I love to experiment with this because you never know what you're going to get. Let's try our dampening factor. Let's bring that up about halfway. Now, look at this. Completely different effect. Now, notice how the particles are disappearing. That's because we still have to adjust their lifetime, and we didn't do that yet. So I'm going to scroll up, and I'm going to set their lifetime to 400 because they'll outlast our timeline, which is about 250 frames. Let's see what we get now. Interesting. Look at how much more fluid that is now that we've messed with the dampening factor. Now, I like this, and I like how they're rolling off of the sphere, and this looks cool and all, but I think I'm going to set the dampening factor to something like 0.2. I don't want it to be so damp that we don't get those flying particles, because I actually think that looks quite nice. That's a little bit better. Maybe we'll try 0.05 for our dampening factor. It seems to affect our scene quite a lot. That's more like it. All right, now if you're still not happy with that, you can raise it just a little bit. We'll do 0.08. Now we're closer to 0.1. And let's see what we get here. That is a little bit more realistic. Now, I think that looks really good. Now, if you're looking to get a super realistic look for this, you're going to want to look online at different visual examples of the real thing. But so far, I'm super happy with this. I think this looks awesome. And this is one of the things I wanted to show you guys because there's so much you can do with particles just to simulate your own scientific projects, have fun, create really cool visuals. And this is only the viewport. Imagine what happens when you start adding actual objects. And what's really cool about ParticleSystems is you can plug in different attributes within your shader editor. So if you know anything about materials, you can tie this into materials as well, and you can access that velocity value. So not only does it look cool in the viewport, but you can make it look extra awesome in our rendered view as well. Now that's going to be pretty much it for today. I want to show you one more thing. I'm going to go ahead and add another object. I'm going to duplicate this object. And I want to have 2 spheres because I want to see and I want to show you guys how it looks with 2 different objects. Very cool. And look, it's pretty much going to update no matter what you do. I'm going to add one more object. I'm going to go all the way back. Look at that. Look at the fluid flow. Well, sorry, the airflow rather. Now, this isn't going to be scientifically accurate. That's the last thing I'll mention. Please don't build an airplane and expect this to give you an accurate preview. However, if you do enough research, you can probably get it pretty darn close. Just remember, I did not tell you to make this aerodynamic simulation and that it would be reliable scientifically. It's just a visual way to represent how air might or might not flow around an object. Have fun with it, guys. Experiment with the particle size, the amount of particles. It is a lot of fun. I promise you, you will love it. And don't forget, you can also change this cross to axis. You can also change this to circles, which are kind of like fun little bubbles. You can really do anything you want. Have fun with it. And once you guys do create your projects, I would highly suggest that you record your screen, upload them, share them with me. I would love to see what you guys are working on. If you have any issues, just remember you need your collision object, and you can always reach out for me if you need help. Guys, have a great time. I will see you in the next chapter. In the next lesson, we'll explore dynamic paint, where we'll learn to create interactive paint effects on surfaces. Stay tuned.